Abbott. Present. Council Roderick.
Present.
Council Lambert.
Present.
Council Pelletier.
Yes, ma'am.
Council Leonard has notified me he will not be attending tonight, and Council Nelson has not arrived yet.
Under the consent agenda, we have the following items before the council. Approval of minutes from regular council meeting August 14, 2012. Councilor Leonard will abstain. He was absent.
Still abstaining.
Approval of minutes from workshop September 8, 2012. Approval of minutes from regular council meeting September 24, 2012. Councilor Nelson and Councilor Pelletier will abstain, absent. Approval of minutes from council special meeting July 19, 2011. Approval of minutes from special council meeting July 18, 2011. Councilor Nelson will abstain, absent. Approval of minutes from special council meeting July 14, 2011. Approval of executive session minutes from special council meeting July 14, 2011. Approval of executive session minutes from special council meeting June 7, 2011. Approval of minutes from special council meeting March 23, 2011. Councilor Leonard will abstain, absent. Approval of regular and executive session minutes, special meeting of March 16, 2011. Councilor Leonard will abstain, absent. Receipt of minutes from various boards and commissions totaling 13 in number. Correspondence received and filed. Including the following. We have a notice from Kate Michaud from the Planning Board noting a notice of public workshops under the title of Main Road to Main Street, and it's noticing the public workshops for Bliss Four Corners, which will take place Tuesday, October 16th, 2012 at 6 p.m. at Sandywood Center, and the public workshop for North Main Road, which...
Jim's down there.
Okay. There we go. Okay, which will take place Tuesday, October 23rd, 2012 at 6 p.m. at the community center. So again, that's Bliss Four Corners, October 16th, and North Main Road, October 23rd. Approval of tax assessor abatements. There are 30 total, and they total $23,196.73. Kate Michaud, Administrative Officer of the Planning Board, has sent us an update on the draft zoning ordinance amendment submitted on behalf of Tiverton Yacht Club, Inc. Briefly, that memo reads as follows. It's dated September 24th to J. Lambert, Town Council President. Quote, and I'm reading this because I've gotten so many questions as to the status of the Tiverton Yacht Club. On August 27, 2012, the Tiverton Town Council voted to refer to the Planning Board a draft zoning ordinance amendment submitted by Kenneth Tremblay Esquire on behalf of the Tiverton Yacht Club, Inc., and Franklin D. Raposa, Peter Core, and Richard Tulin as trustees under Declaration of Trust dated May 6, 1957. At this time, the board is unable to address this petition due to pending requests with the Rhode Island Ethics Commission regarding the ability of several board members to sit. From what I understand, and this is Kate Michaud, 5 of 9 members have requested or will be requesting opinions from the Rhode Island Ethics Commission or will be recusing themselves. Until it has been determined that a quorum of 5 members is available to hear the petition, the board will not be able to place this on an agenda for discussion. It is anticipated that the Rhode Island Ethics Commission will address this issue at their October 16th meeting, meaning that the earliest that the Planning Board could hear the petition is November 20th, 2012. From our Harbor Master, David Venier, a town code change, proposed town code changes to Chapter 14, forwarded to the town solicitor. And from Denise Surratt, treasurer, a distribution of investment report. I'm going to read very, very briefly from that report from Mrs. Surratt, because Mr. Souza has put under the open forum a request for an update on the balance of the landfill account. So I'll read just a portion of it. Quote from Denise Surratt: in order to meet the goals of the landfill closure fund, the money is invested in several different investment vehicles. Those investment vehicles are identified on the attachment. Continuing with the memo, the town has been able to realize an increase in principal of approximately $600,000 since the inception of the pay-as-you-throw program. Coupled with steady earnings, prudent management, and the 2011-2012 town appropriation, the landfill fund has grown from $4,015,699 at June 30th, 2011 to $4,988,028 as of September 30th, 2012, meaning in the 1 year and 3 month period, there has been an increase in the fund totaling $972,329. Do we have any items to be removed?
CA6, I would like to have that removed just for a quick discussion.
Okay, CA6. Any other items to remove? Okay, Mr. Pelletier?
I just wanted to, for my own edification, know the sort of scope of what we're doing here, and we need to put this to public hearing, correct? Is that correct? Before that, you're going to review it and come back to us with a proposed date next go around?
The Harbor Masters one?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
That's
the
just,
one.
okay. And just, I'm trying to, it's 3 weeks we need for advertising before we can sort of hold a public hearing, or
Well,
essentially
no.
that's what it boils down to?
Essentially, it's 21 days,
Yeah.
which with the weekly publication cycle
It's 4
essentially
weeks.
goes down to like six weeks by the time you get the meetings and the advertising deadlines.
So we're looking December sometime, okay. Okay, thank you.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
We have a second? All those in favor? The consent agenda is approved.
Okay.
Under open public forum, we have one item by Mr. Souza. Mr. Souza, have we addressed your issue? We have almost to the penny $5 million in the
I
account.
had a lot of questions where that money was going, so I just wanted to emphasize that's a restricted account and that it is drawing interest.
Yeah.
A lot of people have asked me where that money goes.
To make it clear, I don't know how we can make it any more clear. I think there have been 3 or 4 resolutions passed, most of them proposed by Mr. Leonard, making sure that all of that money has been put into a restricted account. To my understanding, and Mr. Bellucci could correct me if I'm wrong, we've never taken a penny out of that account, have we? We have once?
Yes.
I think
we
of a
have.
vague, what did we take it out
We
for?
took out about $27,000 to do a landfill closure study.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's right, yeah.
Feasibility
The
study.
feasibility study for the landfill closure did come out of that account, so that was about $27,000. That should be it. Good. Okay. Okay, under public hearings and public presentations, public hearing.
Excuse me?
Yep.
I'd like to know, I came in a little late, if it's too late for me to be a part of the public forum.
No, well, what subject is it?
It's to do with site ready.
The site, okay.
Now, that's on the
agenda.
Yeah, we already have that on the agenda. I think that we'll have some discussion of that later this evening.
Okay, will I be able to participate with a comment?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Under public hearings and public presentations, public hearing, proposed amendment to zoning ordinance Article 8, watershed protection and overlay district. And we have an attachment to the agenda, which is B1. Does anybody want to address this as part of the public hearing at this point? Okay. Mr. Hardy?
I'll be happy to be a
Okay.
resource person.
Great. Well, I was going to ask you, Mr. Hardy, to explain the background and
Certainly,
give us
certainly,
the highlights of
certainly.
this proposed change.
Certainly. I'm Stuart Hardy, Vice Chairman of the Planning Board. Steve Hughes, our Chairman, could not be here tonight and asked me to step in. This change in the zoning language concerning the density of building in a watershed overlay district was really prompted by Stonebridge Fire and Water District. They have persistently raised caution flags and grave concerns about dense building activity in particularly the Stafford Pond watershed, and most recently in connection with the proposed 16-unit development on the south end of Stafford Pond at Bulgamarsh Road. And so we've been discussing this for over a year now, and what we're proposing to do is, let me explain first of all what the current language requires. Currently, there's a density rule that applies just for development in Stafford and non-quit pond watersheds. Those are our two reservoirs. That there be only 1 unit per 3 acres. However, developers can count into that 3-acre calculation wetlands and steep slopes, which are unsuitable for building. And what we have done is change the language so that in the future, developers who wish to build in the watershed overlay district will not be able to take unsuitable land, such as wetlands and steep slopes, into account. So they will not get credit for that, and they will have to come up with 3 acres that are actually buildable. So this will considerably reduce the density. Now, why do we want to do that? We want to reduce the density because the studies that were enumerated in the findings that you have in your packets indicate a clear correlation between the water quality of the pond and the amount of impervious cover in the watershed. That has to do, the impervious cover would be paved roads, paved driveways, building footprints, land that cannot absorb water. And in a storm or in any kind of a rain event, there is water runoff carrying pollutants such as phosphorus into the ponds. And as we know, that's become a real problem in Stafford Pond, where not only the state but also the federal government has actually stepped in with a TMDL program to reduce the phosphorus loading in Stafford Pond. And that program has not completely reached suitable results. So we feel that this particular change in language will certainly help Stafford Pond reduce the phosphorus loading and also curb other types of pollutants that run off from impervious or hard surface. So that's what our goal is. I'd like to emphasize that this will only apply to developments, subdivisions, going forward in the future. It will not be retroactive, and it will not make any existing properties non-conforming. Nor will it have any impact on somebody who wants to put an addition on their house, or or pave their driveway, or build a garage, or put a deck on their house. It would not apply to that, only to subdivisions. And and I would like to finally point out that we went through all applicable municipal and state plans and regulations to make sure that we were consistent, this language is consistent with what is in our own comprehensive community plan, for example, and what is in state plans, such as their land use proposals. And we found consistency, and that's also enumerated in the memo that you have, in the findings memo. So, did I answer all the questions?
Any questions from the council?
If I may, Mr. Hardy, do we know what the phosphorus level is now at Stafford?
I think it is in the memo, in the findings. I can't remember, but it is
I read
higher.
that they want to reduce it to average level of .025, but I
exactly, and it's
see.
higher, and it's higher than that now.
Yeah.
It is higher than that now, so we have not yet accomplished. And that was put together by the federal EPA, and it's called a TMDL, or Total Maximum Daily Load. So the idea is to reduce pollution on a daily basis to a certain level, to begin to stabilize the pollution and then to reduce the pollution. But as everybody in this room knows, we've had problems with Stafford Pond because of the many uses and its proximity to dairy farms and its proximity to runoff from Stafford Road and so on and so forth. So.
Any other questions from the council?
I do have one. Steve, you mentioned that this was consistent with the comprehensive plan.
Correct.
Could you share your analysis of that
Yes.
with us? I mean, is that a written analysis
Yes.
that you have?
Yes. In the findings, we say, and I quote, "It supports the Tiverton Comprehensive Community Plan's 2006 update goal of protecting and enhancing water quality in Stafford and Nonquit ponds," pages 24 through 27. And then it further says it contributes to the goals of the federally approved TMDL for total phosphorus loads to Stafford Pond.
Well, thank you. That seems very detailed. Is there any, what's the impact of this on Nonquit Pond?
There has not been, up until now, any intensive development in the Nonquit Pond primary watershed, and that's what we're really concerned about. We're not so concerned about the secondary watershed, which covers a huge, vast acreage. But we know from studies done in that primary watershed area that the soil types and the water table make that a very, very sensitive ecological area where any expansion of impervious area, which hasn't happened yet, happily, but any expansion in the future could have negative consequences on the water quality of Nonquit Pond, which of course is a reservoir, even though it's not Tiverton Reservoir, it's actually owned by Newport Water Authority. Nevertheless, we are stewards of that pond and should strive to keep it as pristine as possible. And right now the water quality is very, very good. But because of the soil types because of the wells and the septics in that area, and because of the high water table, we have to be very, very careful about future development. And personally, I think we should err on the side of being very conservative in terms of permitting any kind of new development in the primary watershed of Nonquit Pond.
Stu, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any questions from the public? Comments? Mr. Souza?
It's been a few years, but Portsmouth used to buy the water from the Stonebridge District, and the reason they stopped buying the water from Stonebridge District is because of the amount of algae the water had. A pretty bad taste to it. The pipeline still exists, but the water's not sold. That kind of hurt the Stonebridge District a little bit. It was helping them with their financial burden. The only other thing, it's probably the mid-'90s that the state came down, did a study on Stafford Road, the planning department, and they had talked about the problems of runoff from Stafford Road, and there was a plan to fix that. And to this date, the retention ponds haven't been installed. There was a big plan to fix that. It might be something that we want to speak with our rep about again. If it's harming the water, there may be some DEM grants perhaps to get that upgraded. Talking over 10 years ago that they did that study. I'm assuming that the state still doesn't have any money, but it may be worth looking into.
Thank you.
Stu, I had one quick question while you're still hanging around. The phrase, for the purposes of new subdivisions and land developments only, what do you define as a new land development? Is that any single development of a raw tract of land?
Yes, and that would be defined in our major land and subdivision regulations. And what we're looking at are minor subdivisions and major subdivisions. We're not looking at individual projects like somebody putting an addition onto their house. And we crafted that language very carefully. Actually, it was Peter Ruggiero, our legal counsel, who crafted the language after lengthy discussions about not having any unintended consequences. And we were particularly concerned about not causing any nonconformities. We were just talking about the yacht club. And so we didn't want to do that and put anybody who was now conforming into a non-conforming situation. And we didn't want to have any kind of a burden on somebody who wanted to do a simple build a garage or expand their deck or something of that sort. So we are talking about the type of developments that would come before the planning board.
And essentially, for those of you who at home and in the audience that aren't reading this, my read of it is it's essentially a new methodology for calculating your required or the required density, and it excludes existing wetlands, and there's some factor for a requirement of uplands. Is it 21 wetlands? Slopes in excess of 21%, and also that the upland minimum should be 65% contiguous. So it's a new methodology.
We're not changing that. The 65% contiguous language was in there already, but just to give you a specific idea of how this might play out, when the developer came forward for the development on the south end of Stafford Pond, right off Bulgamarsh Road, Harkins, it's called Stafford View Farm, is the development. I think the original proposal was actually for 18 units. It was subsequently cut back to 16, but he was legally entitled to 18 because under the current language, he could take into account for purposes of the 1 unit per 3 acres, the considerable amount of wetlands that are in that area. And had this new language been in place, he would have been cut back at least half, so he could have only put in maybe 8 or 9 units under the new language. So that's a good concrete example of what kind of an effect that would have. Not good news for the developer, perhaps, but good news, I think, for Stafford Pond, because it would considerably reduce the impervious cover that we are now going to see in that location because of this development, which will, I think, ultimately be approved by the planning board.
Thanks, Stu.
Okay, at this point, I'll close the public hearing portion. Do we have any further questions or comments from the council?
Make a motion?
Andy, are we entitled to a vote on this tonight, although there's no specific indication that there was going to be a vote?
Oh, yeah.
We can't just-
You're required to. This is
Simply because it says public hearing, we
it's
move on.
a
Okay.
zoning amendment.
Okay.
You're voting on it.
Okay, Mr. Nelson, do you have a motion?
Yes, make a motion to approve the zoning ordinance amendment for the Watershed Protection Overlay District as presented.
Okay, we have a second.
Just a brief comment, just for the record, I wanted to state, as a liaison to the Conservation Commission, it's not in writing, but my understanding is that they have reviewed this, pose no objection, and support it as well. Thank you.
Okay, all those in favor?
I just want to add, and as you're adopting it as written, that includes the findings of consistency by the planning board, that you adopt those as your own findings of consistency with the comprehensive plan. Would that be correct, Mr. Nelson?
Well, it's interesting that I agree with the words that he made of his analysis. I don't know if you're asking me to do my own analysis to make sure.
No, the written support, the written documentation that came from the planning board included the discussion of the comprehensive plan, and that's what I'm asking. The council is supposed to also make findings of consistency when adopting a zoning ordinance, that it's consistent with the comprehensive plan. So I'm just asking that you adopt the planning board's finding of consistency.
As it was explained to me, I would say yes.
Okay, that's fine.
Do we have a second? Okay.
All right,
All
now
those-
the vote.
Okay, all those in favor? Anyone opposed?
Thank you. You're too quick for me.
Acting as a board of licensing, Sarah Fedenko, the Moose Cafe, requests hawker's license to sell holiday Christmas trees. Is anyone here? Okay. You can could you step up to the microphone? Okay. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. You indicate you want to sell Christmas trees, what was it, from November 23rd to December 23rd, as I recall?
Right.
Okay. Any questions from the council?
I just have a question. Where on the Moose, what side?
We really haven't decided.
You give me that little lot in the back?
Probably. Probably. It's the best area.
Yeah.
I just
Pumpkins.
have a quick question. This looks like maybe Nancy's writing. The term, November 23rd to December 23rd?
Right, we had to have the term on there.
Yeah. Is that something we set, or I thought we did these annually?
I had to pick like a.
No, she can't sell Christmas trees annually. She's just asking for this.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it said 2013. My apologies.
But if it's
Because
Christmas
after a
Eve,
certain amount of time, it
Let's
was
come back next year.
a bigger license.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I read that wrong.
Okay, we have a motion?
I will make a motion that, subject to all legal requirements, that we approve the sale of Christmas trees.
Second.
All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Good luck.
Thank you.
Under appointments and resignations, resignation of Sienna Franklin from the Juvenile Hearing Board. And we have a email from Ms. Franklin requesting, noting her resignation effective October 2nd. Do we have a motion to accept the resignation?
I would move that we accept Ms. Franklin's resignation with great thanks and regret.
Do you have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Do we have any candidates at this point, or we're going to advertise that?
I think we had one the last time. That wasn't when we were going to go back and check.
Okay.
We do have other appointments next meeting, so.
just a quick note, Ms. Franklin said she'd be interested in other committees as well, so, great.
So we have a big slate for next meeting of appointments and whatnot for open. No, those you just said.
I said I have some points
Okay.
Under unfinished business, Councilor Pelletier, update on the website and the town administrator recommendation.
I'm going to let Jim talk about this for a minute, and then I'll jump in when he's done. He's got a memo here that I believe was meant for last meeting, but I was absent, so he's brought it forward this meeting. Take it away, Jim.
For all intents and purposes, I won't read the memo, I'll just indicate what's in it. A while back, I contacted the school department to indicate we were interested in redoing our website, and if asked them who did their website, and if there was any possibility of community service in conjunction with one of their IT teachers or something. They referred me to the community service individual who at that point indicated to me if it was going to be done by students, it wouldn't be as professional as we would like it to be, and referred me to a company called O'Toole and Parr. I contacted them, and they indicated that it would cost between $20,000 and $30,000 to redo our website, but they could just give it a facelift and rearrange it for $10,000 to $12,000. I then contacted a company called Rhode Island, or RI.gov, who has a contract with the state of Rhode Island, and they do all the websites for the state and a lot of the communities as well. And I talked to one of their designers, and she indicated that they would be pleased to redo our website at no cost, and gave us some examples of some of the state agencies that they redid the websites, and some of the towns that they have redone. They have a template that they use. They continually update it, and they would use the latest template for us. So that would be no cost, but then we would have to populate the website. We would have to copy the data from our current website onto our new website, and she indicated that we could, get people, we could hire people at minimum cost to do that for us. And then after that was completed, then we would have to maintain the website. We currently have someone who maintains the website, but I'm not so sure that that would be the same person that would maintain the new website. So the bottom line is, I asked her when could this effort begin. She said probably in November sometime. She would put it on her schedule, and that's where we are. We're on the schedule to begin in November.
So that's where we are. So what I would respectfully suggest and recommend is that we make a decision, or you make a decision, or whoever is the decision maker in this makes a decision as to who our web administrator is, because I really would stress that having the new administrator in at the ground floor is going to save us a lot of headache in maintenance and handing over. It's a heck of a lot easier if the person who's tasked with the maintenance and update and administration of the site after it's launched be part of the process to create the site. And whether that's our in-house guy or somebody new or whoever it is, I would respectfully suggest that be considered, if not done. And populating the site isn't as daunting a task as it might seem. I think it would be fairly productive and simple to have the departments essentially create their own. I mean, they have it right now, I imagine. They have data that goes up onto the site, whether it's documents or forms or contact information. It's not absurdly complicated. That's a good starting point. I'm not so certain we need to hire anybody to come in to populate our site. I mean, our site is for the most part there. We're just trying to make it easier to use and have more information and have a bit more storage capacity. And also, you know, if something just popped into my head, our administrator also, I mean, we're going to be using a standard software that hopefully he would be or she would be familiar with, which is pretty pro forma for the industry. But certainly if he's able or she's able to come in at the ground floor and get some seat time with that software on our site, I think that would help us as well to minimize the bugs. So that's my 2 cents, and I'm happy to hear what anybody else has to say about it.
Any further questions, comments? And I assume, Jim, you'll keep us informed on the progress?
I will.
Okay. Mr. Pelletier, anything further?
No?
Councilor Coulter, update on planning and zoning workshop issues and solutions. And attached as part of the agenda is a summary of the workshop prepared by the Cecil Group. Mr. Coulter.
Thank you, Mr. President. By way of review, the council held an open forum a few weeks ago, and one of the things we decided at that time was we held the window open past the workshop so that there could be further submissions in writing, anonymous or not, and we let that run another couple weeks. And so what we've done with our facilitator has summarized them, and I think it's fair to say that the workshop was a success. There were nearly 50 attendees there, and we have, by my count, at least 30 anonymous submissions to follow up. So we have 80 potential areas for improvement, and I'm delighted to report, and I think all will agree, that the forum itself, it was substantive, it was professional, it was respectful, it was meaningful, and a substantial number of our town board volunteers were there, employees were there, and all of them there as volunteers. So I think it was a great success, and there's certainly quite a few areas to look at. So what I think we need to make sure is that we keep the momentum going and we follow up, and it doesn't just become one of these things where we sort of have a workshop and it gets put on a shelf somewhere. So what I think we should consider is that, and these have been numbered. The facilitator grouped some that were repetitive, but we essentially have about 60 topics to consider, which is quite a few, and that's great. But what I would hope is that we could make a commitment that each and every single one of those 60 topics is reviewed fully, and many of the topics and the ideas that are there may very well result in no change, because there might be something like state law that controls it, and of course there are many stakeholders that have a role in this. Many of these items are not the purview of the town council, but might be the purview of the town administrator, the planning board, or the zoning board, or somebody else. So what I think we should hope to do is to take every suggestion and at least document clearly, if there's not going to be a change, why is that, and to make sure that all sort of points of view are explained, and that to make sure everybody agrees that where the authority lies. If it's something that state law controls, let's be really clear about that and set that out. Now, as we've said before, this is a large undertaking. I'm making no illusions about that. These are very complex problems, very emotionally charged problems. I think we all agree there are some areas for improvement. And so I think the question is, where do we want to go from here? And what I throw out just as a starting point is that perhaps what we need is a study group that can pick this up and own it the way that we've had success with these types of groups that have been narrowly defined, such as our Buildings Advisory Commission, or of course the Financial Town Meeting Changes Commission, which produced the Financial Town Referendum. And I think that it's going to take a fair amount of time to do this, but and I'm certainly interested in hearing what others think. But what I think would make a lot of sense, bearing in mind that the same facilitators that helped us with this forum will also be helping the town this month with the form-based codes. So I don't know that it makes sense to start the follow-up on this today. I think our planning and zoning energy, quite frankly, needs to be focused on the form-based codes for North Tiverton and for Bliss Corners. But maybe when the council reconvenes in November, that would be an appropriate time to convene a committee that's going to take all of these ideas, prioritize them, and make sure that each and every single topic is documented so that everybody in the room can understand, even if there's not agreement on the actual decision, what the points of view are and why the decision was made.
Any further comments from the council?
I just have one. I think that this was a lot of work, and the CISO group did a great job in prioritizing and putting this together. But I think any group that gets together, I think that it should be the council, planning, and zoning, because these are the issues that are addressed to these groups. So as well as getting another group involved, I think we need to work one-on-one with both the planning and zoning. And I think joint meetings with both those groups would be the best way, in my opinion, to work through this, because they're the ones that deal with this day to day. And I think you need to have the stakeholders there in order to understand what really happens when it comes to planning and zoning. So it would be my recommendation that the council, planning, and zoning plan joint meetings to discuss these issues and work through them.
While I agree with the substance of Mr. Roderick's remarks, I would add that perhaps we should consider, instead of all three bodies meeting, that we would create a committee that consists of members of all three, not necessarily all three bodies meeting. Just a thought.
I would suggest that would be our first step. The task is daunting. There really are 59 items identified as issues with proposed solutions, and it's a varied list. I particularly like the one that suggested that the town is a dictatorship. But being serious, I think it would be a massive effort unless we put a plan in place first, carefully consider just what the appropriate approach will be to such a, really, it looks like a massive undertaking. And I think that's something that we'll have to consider for the next couple of meetings and really adopt a plan to attack these issues that have been raised.
I would just suggest that what I'm hoping to hear, and it sounds like, is that there is a commitment by this council to follow up on these over time, and maybe what we could do is give this another meeting or two. I can come back, Mr. Roderick's point about the planning and zoning, of course. I think we might even want to expand that list to include the town administrator, maybe the building official, maybe EDC. So why don't we, I think we've made the most important step, which is that we've made a commitment to follow up on all of these, because there is definitely some good stuff in here. Then we can tweak the plan forward. And then for this month, let's focus on those form-based codes for North Tiverton and Bliss Corners with the 2 workshops coming up this month.
Okay.
I would just say that what makes zoning and planning issues even more complicated in the town of Tiverton is that we have not only the council and the planning board and the zoning board of appeals who are official boards and commissions. We have the administrator and the planning department and the zoning official in his department. So that is something to consider when we talk about how to implement solutions. I think we need to keep in mind that there's sort of a two-headed dragon, so to speak. That there's the sort of departments, and there's also the boards and commissions, and we have to make sure we're all speaking the same language and we're all on the same page, so that those things don't get jarbled up, because they sometimes can. But I'm very much in favor of moving forward on this.
Okay, well, that'll be our first step then. That is actually coming up with a plan, adopting a plan, and we'll move forward from there. Councilor Shabbat, East Bay Energy Consortium.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just, I had requested an update on the Met Tower results and what the plan would be for that. I don't believe Mr. Plunkett is in attendance. Also wanted to make sure that the July 23rd report that was provided by Gary Plunkett is included in the record. He verbally recited the report, and I wanted to make sure it was for the record in the document was in meeting minutes. Also, Mr. Plunkett questioned my testimony at the Senate hearings and the House hearing. The Senate hearings that I attended, I have documented my testimony of the May 2nd at the Senate hearing and also the Senate hearing of May 30th, and what I provided for testimony, and also the House hearing on 6/5. I just included the memorandum that was provided by the governor's office to delay any activity on the bill 7592. I just want to make that part of the record as well. That's it, Mr. President. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay. I do have some comment relating to that item by Mrs. Shabbat. And I'm going to spend a little time on this because, one, obviously it's a very important issue to the town of Tiverton. But secondly, and for that reason, secondly, I'm often asked for a status report of exactly what's happening with the EBEC project and what's happening with the proposed plans for the wind turbines. The last thing that we received from the East Bay Energy Consortium was a letter from Jean Marie Napolitano, who's serving as the chairwoman for the Newport representative to EBEC, the East Bay Energy Consortium. And I'd like to read that because if you're interested in this subject, it really does bring you right up to date as to where we are. Thank you for your time and consideration at the August 14th, 2012 Tiverton Town Council meeting. Your continued interest regarding the East Bay Energy Consortium general proposal for the Tiverton Industrial Park property is greatly appreciated. As one of 9 member communities, as well as the potential host community, we understand the unique concerns that Tiverton faces in reaching a decision and appreciate the opportunity to assist the council in a fair and rational analysis of wind energy options. EBEC fundamentally believes that the strategy set forth delivers a great economic benefit to the town of Tiverton than other potential options. We believe that a review of the wind energy alternatives will illustrate EBEC as a compelling solution for the residents of Tiverton. EBEC remains convinced that a thorough evaluation of wind energy alternatives will show that the EBEC project could produce significantly more net revenue for the town than would a private commercial project. As you are aware, the purpose of the East Bay Energy Consortium is to collaborate as 9 communities to seek revenues and cost savings through energy efficiency and renewable energy production. Simply put, the goal is to work together to save taxpayer money. The appointed representative of EBEC, which includes current and former city and town council members, current city and town staff, legal and energy experts, and recognized civil volunteer leaders, have remained committed to the goal since 2009. Although the state legislation proposed to evolve EBEC from a volunteer consortium into a more substantial legal entity stalled in June of 2012, EBEC remains dedicated to the mission, and overall support for the effort remains strong. We intend to move forward and to define an acceptable legal framework for an EBEC public entity acceptable to the council, the Rhode Island legislature, and to the member municipalities of the consortium. As stated at the meeting, it is regrettable that the rapidly moving state legislative process created misunderstandings, and we do appreciate that the final weeks of that process raised concerns due to a paucity of time to process information as it was provided by the state. EBEC representatives experienced similar anxiety as we all received information, asked clarifying questions, and suggested revisions, and as we sought to inform and communicate with our respective communities. The process was further stressed by inaccurate information and misinformation that was and continues to be quickly broadcast through various media outlets. As we move forward, the following points should be restated. A, EBEC has not and will not support legislation nor an organizational structure that results in legal or financial liability to the taxpayers of Tiverton. B, uncertainties regarding the exact, precise potential financial benefit to Tiverton will remain until several issues are resolved. That is, approval of a wind energy zoning ordinance, commitments by the town water authorities to participate, the terms of a power purchase agreement with National Grid, and the cost of interconnection to the grid. Because the financial benefits to Tiverton are directly tied to net revenues of the project, in addition to lease and pilot payments, these variables dictate the projected cash flow to the town. As previously stated, no zoning regulations for wind energy exist at the subject location. When drafted, the zoning ordinance will dictate the number of wind turbines feasible on the project sites. All projects, public or private, should be subject to this same process. C, in spite of these uncertainties, a rational analysis of alternative wind energy proposals is possible if all proposals use a common framework / process instead of assumptions. EBEC believes that progress toward reaching a decision should be dependent upon item C in order to protect the best interest of Tiverton taxpayers. EBEC strongly recommends a single common framework and process for evaluation. In February 2012, at the request of the council, EBEC offered a draft framework and will gladly work with all stakeholders to refine the parameters of such a tool. In addition to a common framework / process, it is recommended that Tiverton engage a professional industry third party to evaluate the proposed strategies. Given the immense complexity of the project, its many variables, and the major impact on the future of the town, this level of expertise will be critical to reaching a sound decision. Thank you again for your ongoing interest in the East Bay Energy Consortium. We are eager to move forward with the council on this project and look forward to continuing deliberations. that is as up to date as I can give you on any information that the town council has received. And
identify that letter, please? I'm sorry. You mentioned it
well,
at the outset.
it's from Jean Marie Napolitano as chairwoman / Newport representative to EBEC, and dated August 31st, 2012. As you know, the proposed legislation was not adopted. We do not have a framework for the EBEC proposals. And really at this point, I'm not trying to be difficult or argumentative, but I think it's probably fair to say that with nothing by way of legislation from Providence at this point, I don't think that the town council has any rational basis for making any analysis or comparing this proposal with a private proposal from any other source. It is noted a couple of times that there are a number of variables, but we don't have legislation addressing any of those variables. So that at this point, I would say, I'm perhaps just speaking for myself, based on the current status of EBEC, I'm just not really in a position to make any sort of evaluation of the EBEC concept, because in all honesty, other than a concept, I have no specifics whatsoever at this point to take a look at. If anyone has any comment of their own, that's
Just one further comment, Mr. President. I just want to make sure that everyone's still aware that Tiverton has a moratorium on wind turbine development. It's currently in place pending siting standards from the state and any local ordinances we may pass in addition to state siting standards.
okay. Any further comments?
I have a question.
Mrs. Bellicia?
Is EBEC strictly a wind energy
No.
group? Because in the last Secana Times, there was this very interesting turbine article that was actually made in Bristol. And since it's so close, maybe EBEC could look into that. Maybe we get a neighbor's discount if they put something in or something like that.
I have no idea where.
Because that seemed awfully
Yeah, I don't know
interesting.
how EBEC will evolve and
Right.
whether or not we'll ever see any legislation. I think the only point I was trying to make, and really it's more on my own behalf than the council, I'm not speaking for the council, is that I've had a number of inquiries as to what are you guys doing about EBEC? And the answer is we have nothing to look at this point. We really don't. I don't mean that as a criticism. I don't know what might be holding up the decision-making process in Providence, but I don't have anything specific at this point to analyze or evaluate or to report to you.
Well, it gives us time to think,
Yeah,
because
sure.
we do see the one in Portsmouth being idly sitting quiet, and a whole forest of them would not be good, whereas if underwater turbines go kaflooey, at least you don't see them. So, I mean, it's practically speaking,
Okay.
down the road, 20 years down the road, you'd have windmills, but the other things would sort of just wither away.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Bellicia. Mr. Belli?
I just have one question that, I've been following this whole issue with EBEC and the wind turbines, and I know everybody here on the council is well aware of what our neighboring town, Portsmouth, is going through right now. And I have yet to see anything as far as EBEC, that if EBEC was ever to dissolve and we had the towers sitting in our industrial park, who is going to be responsible if one of those towers breaks and it costs $500,000 to fix it? Is it going to be what's left of the consortium that all the towns are going to be, legally responsible, or is Tiverton going to pretty much be stand alone for the entire bill? Yeah, that's the question I have.
I assume if we ever get to that point, that would be an issue of negotiations between the town of Tiverton and EBEC.
No, that's, just one question I'd like to throw out there for this council and the future councils. So if this does come up again, at least, it's a question that can be posed, because the one in Portsmouth is still sitting there, not spinning.
And I think the cost wasn't $500,000. I think the cost that I'm seeing in the paper is $2.3 million to repair that one turbine.
Well, I remember the first one that came out, it was lower, but now the price has gone up, so.
I think the bottom line is these are all things your town council would take into consideration, but there is nothing on the table at this point for us to look at. I don't think there's anything for us to report.
Okay.
That's not going to last forever. I mean, at some point, we have to move on. At some point, the town council, on behalf of this town, has to make a decision. Are we going to try with some alternative source of energy, whether it's private or public? We can't wait on EBEC forever. And I think most people would agree we've been rather patient. Patient, I think, would be the word that Ed suggests. I think we've been patient, but obviously we can't just let this thing drift forever.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to add a few remarks. I would also remind, sort of for the record, that this council did approve numerous times resolutions expressing support conceptually of EBEC in the name of competition in the industrial park. And I have been troubled many times at seeing a disconnect between what is said in some places, such as letters like that, and what the actual legislation looks like. So just by way of very quick summary, the resolution, which is currently in force, states that we want advance warning and to give the public the opportunity to study and comment on any legislation. And so there's no doubt about it. Nobody should be at the State House saying council has approved anything until the people at Tiverton have had a chance to comment on it, and the council has had a chance to comment on it. And for what it's worth, it's interesting that we have these factors about water districts and power purchase plans. And what was not mentioned was the two most important factors, which I think troubled this council, is number one, eminent domain. That they would have the power of eminent domain, which was stripped out of at least the last version. And secondly, nowhere in any form did we see Tiverton having the right to consent. And what that meant is out of the 9 East Bay communities, 5 of them, none including Tiverton, could make a decision about how much money Tiverton gets. It could be 1/9, it could be 2 nights, it could be 1/99. And that's very important, and it has a little bit of an analogy to the tolls fight that we're dealing with right now, where the concept is to over-toll the Sakonnet Bay Bridge and create an East Bay infrastructure fund so that even though we pay full freight for gas tax, we'll have this extra fund that will be shared among the East Bay communities. And so the question to ask yourself is, do you think that Tiverton will get a fair share of that infrastructure fund? The same analogy applies here. So when we talk about factors coming forward, I would respectfully suggest do not come forward here with a presentation with any proposal that would have eminent domain over Tiverton's taxpayers. Thank you.
Okay. Under new business, Councilor Nelson, relating to the proposal by Site Ready Materials for Eagleville Road. And we attached to the agenda is a planning board notice and application and correspondence from Stonebridge Fire District opposing construction of a recycling plant
Mr.
on
President,
Eagleville Road.
and Mr. Nelson, if you just allow me one small thing. I just want to know, has the planning board made a decision on this?
That's a good point. Yeah.
Because again, that's the planning board's
Yeah.
charge.
If I could, Mr. Roderick, I
Yeah.
plan to address that.
Yeah, I'm just saying, because again, this sounds like us going above another group's authority. That's what it seems to me.
Okay, Mr. Nelson? I think, I guess I would put it in more legalese terms, and that is, at this point, this town council has absolutely no jurisdiction over this issue, but...
Those are all statements that I was going to make.
Okay, good, okay.
So would you like me to make them again?
No, go ahead, Mr. Nelson.
Okay.
It's your item.
So if I could, the purpose of me bringing this forward is for us to provide a forum for the town on a wider scale to understand exactly what is in this proposal. So, this first came in front of the town council back in July. It was on the consent agenda, and then it went right over to the planning board. The planning board, I believe, is under a continuance. They are looking at a traffic study. They are doing a professional job at approaching this, and I commend them for that. My purpose in bringing this forward is not to look into what the planning board is doing. My purpose is to ensure that we shine a light on the content of this and that we enable some public discussion and awareness to take place, and also for us to ensure that rumors don't get started. This is a comprehensive and significant proposal, and I know that the police chief and and Mr. Bellucci have expressed some concerns. I haven't actually heard those concerns expressed, so I called up Jim and I asked if those folks could be here this evening. And since it's on the agenda, I would also look forward to any public remarks as well. So that's the purpose of me to bring this forward. So before I ask for any comment from some of the folks I just mentioned, I would ask the council if they have any issues with what I describe as the purpose of me bringing this up this evening.
I would just maybe emphasize again, maybe Andy wants to explain exactly what the process is that these things come forward and they are pro forma sent back to the planning board and they take a cut at it, and at this point our role is only informational.
Just want to make sure that was stressed.
Sure.
Mr. Tights, before you answer, we'll say it again.
Yeah, even more so in this case, I believe the item that was on your consent agenda was informational. What I have not been able to ascertain is whether the town is a property owner within the radius, which is why we formally got the notice. But in any case, the jurisdictional posture is that it is before the planning board, and depending on the ultimate ruling of the building official, be going to the planning board, then to the zoning board. It would not be a town council item. It's not something that they're asking for anything for the town council to do. That's permitted. There's no harm in the council discussing it and shining a light on it. Planning board members have been advised not to speak at tonight's hearing because they have it in front of them. They're still hearing the matter and need to keep an open mind. But there's no problem with the town council talking about it as long as you realize there's nothing in front of you to do anything with it at this time.
Great. Thank you, Andy.
Well, and I will defer to that, our legal counsel, Mr. Tights. The additional concern that I would have really at this point, even with the concept of we're shedding light on an issue over which, of course, we have no legal jurisdiction at this point, I'm not so sure that we could do that fairly. And I say that because obviously the applicant will never show up. The applicant is now going through a process that has them before the planning board.
I'm sorry, do what fairly?
Well, you're not going to hear from all sides. I mean, you do. I think we can accept the reality that the applicants on this issue, whether I'm for or against it, I'm looking at it from a perfectly sort of legalese viewpoint. The applicant will not have a hearing here even for
this is no hearing in any way, shape, or form.
It's for informational purposes.
Right, for members of the public to come here and speak their minds, or members of the administration.
And we'll have
Mr.
that.
President, if I was speaking, please?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, finish, Mr. Nelson.
I don't understand your approach that says that what we're doing would be unfair in some way.
That's not what I'm suggesting. What I am saying is you are going to hear from one side at this point. It may be for informational purposes, which is fine. If Mr. Tights is comfortable with that, I'll go along with it if you want that as an agenda issue. But I can't believe that any applicant in this situation would contribute anything to this hearing. So I'm just suggesting we recognize that it may be an unbalanced hearing at this point. That's all. That's all I'm suggesting.
I have 2 cents to say. I, with all due respect, acknowledge Andy's legal opinion on this, but I disagree that it is an appropriate forum. And sort of the language we've been batting around is the whether I'm for it or against it, whether we're just for informational purposes only, we're shedding some light on it. It's because it's, at least to some people, an unfavorable proposal to the planning board. We don't do this because everybody likes the proposal and we want to make sure everybody has all the information. And if that's what we're going to do as a matter of course from now on, we should take up every item that the planning board has on their agenda before the council so that they can get the public can get a little information about it. So, you know, this idea that we're shedding some light on it because there's controversy and there are people who dislike it. And I think the idea that whether I'm for it or against it, I have absolutely, as a town councillor, no opinion of whether I'm for or against this proposal, the validity of this proposal, the qualification of the applicant, any of it, because I wasn't elected to do that, and the planning board has their process. And I think even by talking about it in one way or the other at the town council level, we have somehow just interfered with the process. And I think the planning board and the zoning board of appeals and the zoning officer have a job to do, and I'm not comfortable talking about this either way. So that's just my 2 cents.
You seem to have, Mr. Pelletier, if I may, focused on the fact that some folks see this as unfavorable. I didn't make any remarks one way or the other.
I know, that's why I said it was, the underlying tone was, no, well, you know, I mean, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to appreciate that we talk about controversial proposals when they come to at the council and there's a room full of people. I can probably, without doing a poll, guarantee you that everybody that's here for this item is not here to say, I think it's wonderful and let's build 10 of them. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying that we are already going into this to try and give information, but that information, I'm not sure is appropriate to be, you know, having an open forum for people to talk about this issue that is not in front of the council at the moment. That is my opinion.
So, you would deny everybody here that wants to speak to this issue the opportunity to do so this evening? Is that what you're suggesting, Mr. Pelletier?
I'm not suggesting anything. I'm simply stating that my opinion on this matter is I don't believe that it's appropriate use of town council time or authority.
If I could maybe suggest a path forward that might, the most important concern in my mind was to dispel the rumors that this was before the council, and I think we've done that. And I'd also suggest we just spoke about EBEC, and of course there's no active proposal in front of the council on EBEC, and we've just discussed it. And of course, such a proposal would go through a lot of places. But what I'm wondering is if we can find common ground in allowing the public the opportunity to speak as they would speak to us in an open forum, and that we ourselves refrain from discussion or, quite frankly, even responding. And then that way we might be able to assuage the concerns that have been expressed, but still allow the public input. Does that perhaps strike a compromise?
Let me ask a question, that is, how many people, having heard from the town council now and their individual views, want to express some opinion concerning the proposal by Site Ready Materials? How many people do we have?
More than a dozen people.
How many of you folks will also be at the planning board? Okay. Okay.
Again, if I just may, again, this is an item that is before the planning board. They are in deliberations. And, you know, to me, this is like being on a jury and going to lunch and discussing it with the opposing attorney. I mean, that's my feeling. You know, it's not council business. This is before the planning board. You know, whether I'm for this or against this, you know, is my own personal opinion. But it is not in the council's purview to discuss this. That's my opinion only.
Once again, I don't know how clear about this I could possibly be. I've not expressed here at this table tonight any view for or against. This is meant for our public to come up and express their opinions on it. Those remarks do not get the same type of coverage or visibility at a planning meeting as they would in front of the town council here, where it will be televised. So this is an issue in front of our community that I think is important that we as councilors listen to what our constituencies have to say to us.
Okay, with all of the qualifications already noted by the members of the town council, we'll proceed as follows. You have 1 minute. Maybe we'll enlarge on that, but just from the number of hands, I would assume that there's going to be an awful lot of repetition. I would ask that you state your name, address, your viewpoint, perhaps fill us in with some detail, but hopefully not be too repetitious. Who wants to start the process? Mr. Souza?
My name is Joseph Souza, 49 Hancock Street. I'll just say thank you to the council for, this is televised, and the planning board is not, so it gives, I think, a wider audience a chance to see and understand what's going on. I wanted to come up first because I wanted to ask some of the people that are going to come up and speak, would there be a difference if this facility had to construct an off-ramp off of 24 rather than the trucks moving down either Fish Road or Stafford Road? This is something that we've tried to get previously when other developers have tried to develop in that area, and that was a sticking point, was that there's no off-ramp on 24. So that, I'm just wondering if that would be a game changer. This is an industrial area. Our comprehensive plan laid this out to try to build some business in town to help our tax base. So I think if we allowed this facility and they built a ramp, I think perhaps it could help the town.
And Mr. Bellucci?
Mr. President,
Yep.
I really feel uncomfortable having any person, employee of the town, make any comments. We said it was for the public, not
This is
for...
before the planning board. I agree.
So
Okay.
I would not
Thank you,
accept
Steve.
any
That
information.
makes sense. Okay.
Thank you to the town council. My name is Patricia Pelletier. I live on Eagleville Road, and I don't want to be repetitive. I don't know how much information you guys actually have, and I just want to make sure that it's clear that I believe that this is for common household trash, not for yard waste. We were concerned with Stafford Pond here tonight. You voted to, make sure that wetlands weren't included in the 3-acre minimum. This is in a watershed protection overlay district. This should not even be up for discussion. I also want for you guys, and I think it's the town council who needs to take into consideration our property value loss. Site Ready Materials estimated that they would give to the town an additional $15,000 in tax revenue. That's peanuts. My property taxes will be cut in half. I have a question about what happens if Site Ready Materials dissolves. Who's going to clean up the mess? They have no money to do it, and you have polluted soil. It's like Bay Street all over again. I'll leave the rest for everybody else.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Donna Banville, also from Eagleville Road. I'd just like to briefly read an attachment that I delivered to Gareth Eames this morning, and I'll just basically read it out. as residents in the town of Tiverton and neighbors to the site-ready operation at 322 Eagleville Road, please be advised that we oppose their master plan application, which is before the planning board, and if approved, we have a severely detrimental impact in our neighborhood and the town with over 740 truckings per day. We oppose the issuance of a special use permit from the zoning board under the section 13A of the Tiverton zoning code use table, as it proposes manufacturing, storing, and/or processing activities in conformance with Article 13 of the zoning ordinance. We oppose your waiving a separate special use permit pursuant to Article 8, the Watershed Protection Overlay District. We oppose your waiving an environmental review statement pursuant to Article 8, Section 4 to 5 of the zoning code until the preliminary plan stage. At the present time, we request that you provide us with all the permits which are required by the town of Tiverton and by the state of Rhode Island for the above captioned business, including the document from the town of Tiverton to the operation allowing this business to operate any and all operations on the property, including the leaf and yard waste compost facility. That you provide us with an explanation for the blasting that has and is being done and the removal of aggregate from the result of the blasting and as above the permits granted. Again, that you offer an immediate remedy to restore our right of peace and quiet enjoyment of our properties by ordering a cease and desist to any and all companies that have no permits from this town to operate on 322 Eagleville Road. That you acknowledge that any and all correspondence issued by you on behalf of the town of Tiverton adhered to the zoning of the town of Tiverton. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Banville.
My name is Mike Proto. I live on Eagleville Road. I have a big concern. I don't think it's been addressed. Eagleville Road is going to have 72,000 trucks going to site ready. I don't think you people realize that. I don't think you realize the mess it's going to make of the road. But I think the biggest problem we're going to have is contamination of our wells, Stafford Pond. Now, what are you going to do when you don't have well water? Where are you going to go? You people that want to sell your house and go to Florida, how are you going to do that? Nobody's going to buy your damn house, not with contaminated water. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you.
I'm Arthur Deschaines. I lived on Eagleville Road almost 50 years, and my wife lived there 70 years. And I'd like to say that I hope you people have a good night's sleep, because I don't sometimes. These trucks go flying by, then they put their exhaust brakes on, and it rattles my bed. Especially the Fall River trucks. They've been flying by, and nobody does nothing. I urge you not to vote for that site. Other thing is, the Eagleville Road, in my opinion, Eagleville Road cannot sustain all those trucks. It's not wide enough. Somebody is going to get killed walking out to get their mail or walking their dog. Somebody is going to get hit. And the other thing, you should put a light on Stafford Road and Eagleville Road. It takes you 15 minutes sometimes to get out of there. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Deschaines. And let me emphasize again, we're not trying to be difficult here. We truly have no jurisdiction. And Mr. Deschaines, we can't vote on anything. Not at this point, at least, we have no jurisdiction. Anyone else want to speak?
Hi, my name's Jack Hoover. I live at 413 Eagleville Road. I built a house down there about 20 years ago. I've lived in town since I was 2 years old, and I don't know if you realize it, that this site is 1,500 feet from Stafford Pond, which is like the length of my yard. And when they first came in, they were fairly good neighbors, and now they're up to, I don't know, 80, 100 trucks a day. There's foul smells coming from the leaves that they're composting from Fall River. Like rows and rows of them. You go out, you drive up the driveway, and it's like, you know, we had the clamshell guys and Monuses when I first built the property. It's not quite that bad, but this is not a good thing to put in a watershed. And I would imagine we're going to really fight like hell for it, or against it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening. My name is Kevin Cody. I live on Eagleville Road also. And I also understand your situation here, and I'm glad that you would allow us to speak. I think, in my mind, the biggest issue is the huge increase in the truck traffic on that road. It's at least 10 to 15 times more than anything we've seen so far. The speed limit on the whole road is supposed to be 25 miles an hour. I know the trucks are going a lot faster than that. There's going to be severe problems, especially at the intersections of Fish Road and Stafford Road. I just want to make sure everybody understands that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comment from the public?
My name is Teresa Cody. I'm on Eagleville Road also, and I attended the planning board meeting where they spoke about how much material they were going to process, and it was something on the order of 1,500 tons per day, if I'm remembering that correctly. 15,000 tons?
15,000 tons a day.
And our landfill, I don't remember the numbers, but I know that it was nowhere, it's more, but that amount of material is huge to be bringing in to a site and processing, and I think people should be aware of that.
Okay, thank you.
Peter Chmura, 359 Eagleville Road. I got a bird's eye view of this. I'm right across the street. I mean, I can't keep my trucks, my cars, my windows, anything clean. Now, as far as addressing what this gentleman brought up, that put a little bit of a bright star on this about the exit and on roads onto Route 24. There was a paper article, Neighbors Rejoice, Firm Closes. This was in East Providence because of the smell and just the dust, the sound. So it's not just the traffic. And all of this trash and recyclables, this was all brought in by rail car. So just to make it very clear that it's not just the traffic, it's the, I don't know if I'm sure somebody's looked over this article. I'm just trying to make it aware of things, not be a constant complaint. I was even told by other people that there's been no complaints about site ready. Well, this was thrown down my throat. I've been there since 1978. I've been a good neighbor, and what did it get me? Telling me now that they're going to be throwing more of an eyesore and a smelly. Basically, this is going to be the town dump in carriers that they might or might not move away every 48 hours. I'm just making this known to everybody. This wasn't said by anybody else. I'm not repeating anybody. Now, granted, I was cut off at the zoning board meeting for saying this exact thing. Now, I don't know how, whether it's going to be slid under the table, under the rug, where everybody lives in town, they might live somewhere else. I'm right across the street. These people that said something, they're down the street, they're further away, whatever. You talked about the watershed like it's the best thing since sliced bread. You're putting a dump right in the watershed. And you're talking about taking, people's livelihoods or making them, build on 3 acres of land, whatever. They're in a watershed. So is this proposal. I got plenty more to say, but you told me keep it within a minute. And like I said, this guy put a little spin on it about the on-ramp. Evidently, he's for it. Maybe he works for L&L, or maybe he's part owner. But I'm just saying that they did it before in East Providence. They threw them out because of the smell, the dust, the noise of it. And they brought all the recyclables, no trucks involved, rail cars, and they still had a hell of a problem with this. And you're going to be bringing in, at 7 o'clock in the morning, how the hell are you going to move on Stafford Road or Fish Road when you got 300, these are 25-ton trucks waiting in line to empty out their trash?
Okay, again, I'm not trying to make this more difficult, but there is no proposal before us, and we are not in the process of doing anything other than listening and getting information. Mr. Bennis?
Roger Bennis, Narragansett Avenue. The question that I'd like to bring up to the council is, if it is at all possible that this development, with the number of trucks, the amount of trash that's anticipated in a watershed area, and the proximity to residential housing, if it is possible that they may get all the possible permits, then my question to the council is, when are you going to change the zoning so that it is not possible without proper restrictions such as you don't do something like this in a watershed area. You don't do something like this and put the number of trucks on Eagleville Road that they plan on putting on Eagleville Road. The zoning should restrict that. If it is possible, per the present zoning, then I think the action that most of us would anticipate from the council is doing something to correct the zoning. That's right. So that this is not possible.
Any further comments? Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Debbie Hoover, 413 Eagleville Road. I don't know what you guys are thinking.
Take my word, Mrs. Hoover. We're not. In my case, I'm thinking
you don't
nothing.
get it. These people have not been monitored. Everything's been swept under the rug. They've been dumping illegally. They've destroyed the land. And everybody's just blowing it off. This can't happen. I don't want to be redundant. Just saying.
Yes, sir.
Gary Pelletier, I'm 1559 Eagleville Road, and I just wanted to go over some of the things that they had, Cyrita had told us. They said they were going to be bringing 700 trucks, loads back and forth. But what they also told us was between 7 o'clock and 8 o'clock, which is the bus time, they're going to be in at least 60 to 100 trucks coming in. The entrance to that place is only before the scale, and they didn't plan on moving the scale when they showed us it. Is only can allow 2 trucks in at a time. So you're going to have 60 trucks coming in an hour that they got to move across a scale, which is pretty much impossible. Well, also what they said is when the truck goes over the scale, how this is going to work is they got to check inside the truck to see if there's batteries. It's trash, but you can't put batteries in there. So they have somebody, they said a specialist, which is basically a joke, going to be checking for anything mercury and all that stuff that could be dumped over there. Which if they have 60 trucks in a row onto the Eagleville Road, I don't think that inspector is going to be doing a very good job. They're going to be moving them as fast as they can. So I'm just trying to say a couple things that, like I said, my kids, I got 2 kids in the school system, a 12-year-old and a 10-year-old. Right now, I take them to school because I don't want them to walk on Eagleville Road to the bus stop because it's such a short road. There's areas of that road when you're coming in the morning, certain times of the year you can't even see because the sun glazes, that I have to slow down to like 20 miles an hour. I'm nervous I'm going to hit somebody in the back. I mean, I didn't plan on my kids being in high school and me taking them to school because they still can't walk on Eagleville Road. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Brian O'Neill, 116 Foran Lane, and I'm also here as a representative of the Stafford Pond Improvement Association.
Okay.
And you guys were talking about the water quality before, and I can tell you as someone who helps with the water studies, it's at its cleanest right now, and I can only imagine what the dust and all the debris could do. I mean, it's not, these aren't tight buildings. They're going to have an opening at either end, and they're going to dump garbage, and we don't know what's in the garbage. The inspectors may do their job, they may not, but you have all kinds of contaminants in the air, and the west wind will blow it right into the pond. That's where it goes. I can already see the dust, and I can hear noises. I'm across the pond off of Stafford Road, and I can hear the noises as clear as, as clear as day. But I just wanted to let you know that the pond, I don't think we can take it. The pond is at its cleanest. I've lived there for 15 years and seen it get cleaner and cleaner. And if we do this, I think we're taking a huge step backwards. That's all.
Good. Thank you, Mr. O'Neill. Any other comments? Mrs. Hilton?
Tricia Hilton, 99 Peaceful Way. The one thing that I would ask the council, and I understand completely the issue of the planning board and jurisdiction, but it seems to me from just the little that I've heard about this, that there's a tremendous amount of confusion as to whether or not what's going on that property today is actually completely legal, and whether or not it's completely legal with town ordinances as well as state regulations. And the only thing that I'd like to say is, as a taxpayer, before we somehow end up in a process that's going to end us with another costly lawsuit, I'd hope that the council or potentially the solicitor or the administrator would look into this and make sure that if we're going forward with the planning board process, that it doesn't put us in any sort of difficult legal position, because in fact what may or may not be going on that property today is not determined to be perfectly legal under our zoning or state law. So that would be my request.
May I,
Yeah,
may I make a comment?
I think that's an appropriate question to address to a town council, even if we defer it to our town administrator or Mr. Tights. Mr. Gonzalo, Mr. Tights, what would someone in Mrs. Hilton's position do?
Before we go there, Mr. President,
question?
perhaps that should be in another agenda item instead of us jumping into that in this environment.
Yeah, I'm not trying to, okay, you may be right. I'm not trying to.
I'll bring that forward in another occasion.
There's an administrative step that has to be taken. Mr. Sousa?
I just wanted to say I don't work for...
Wait a minute. Mr. Tights?
Yeah, without getting into any specifics, I just want to say, obviously, this is coming to our attention with this as an agenda item, and I am looking into it.
Okay.
And if I might just add another comment, we are trying to gain access to the property through legal means.
Okay. And that's a process that'll be separate and independent from what is happening before the planning board.
Correct.
Mrs. Hilton? Mr. Sousa?
I was just going to say I don't work for the corporation. I don't own the corporation. I merely asked a question about the off-ramp, if it would change people's opinion. I didn't give my opinion on this facility. I haven't really weighed it in, so.
Ms. Moniz?
Joan Moniz, 184 Stony Hollow Road. I'd like to say two things, Mr. Lambert. One is, I'm not sure that everybody understands the process, and that is that this comes before the council, then goes to the planning board, and then back to the council. So that's the first statement I'd like to make. The other statement is I'd like to ask Mr. Gonzalo a question that you just said, that you're trying to gain access. We can't go on that property? The code enforcer cannot go on that property?
He has been refused, I believe.
Shut him down.
Well, I don't understand.
Okay, now we're getting a field. Okay, thank you very much, Mrs. Moniz. We're limiting ourselves to one subject. Mr. Pelletier has asked me to, and I'll address the issue to Mr. Tights. I'm not quite sure what Mrs. Moniz was referring to when she indicated that this issue first has to go to the town council. This issue does not have
Right.
to go to the town council first.
This is not a zone change.
No.
The town council notice was just for your information, as many other things are on correspondence. This is not something that goes council, planning board, back to council. It will go to the planning board, it will go to the zoning board, but it will never come back to the council for jurisdiction in its current posture. Unless the owners are seeking some sort of zone change, it won't come back to the council. It won't come to the council at all.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Tice, for that clarification. Mr. Nelson, anything further?
I see tremendous value in what we did tonight. While everybody on this council might not agree with that, I believe that this is the type of forum that our people deserve, and this is the kind of transparency that we have, as a council, have supported. So I see value in everybody who participated here this evening, and I see value in us following up on at least one of these issues that have been brought forward this evening. So I'd like to thank everybody who came out here this evening to express their opinions to us, and I encourage you to stay involved in the process. Thank you.
Okay, next item, bids and requests for proposals. David Venier, Harbor Master, requests permission to advertise to solicit bids for a pump-out boat. Mr. Venier.
Good evening. Basically, on the 27th of August, at the town council meeting, there was a decision made to purchase a pump-out boat, and I'm requesting that we put it out for bid right now. Attached was an ad, a basic ad, and a specification sheet. The only thing that the specification sheet is missing that I'd like to add to it is an appropriate roll-line trailer for the boat.
Okay. And let me stress, for those who are listening, it will specifically provide that the town of Tiverton reserves the right to reject any and all bids.
That's correct.
Okay. Do we have a motion? We have a second?
Second.
Any further comments, questions? All those in favor? Anyone opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see, town administrator items and announcements.
I only have one item to announce, and that is a follow-up to what our harbor master just indicated. We know pretty much what we're going to get for Marine One as a trade-in. So what we're going to do is we're going to advertise the boat for sale with a minimum bid. We know that right now we can get somewhere around $32, $32.50 for Marine One, and we're going to try to enhance that by going out with an advertisement, putting it up for sale with a minimum bid of $4,000 or $4,500, something like that. That's my only announcement.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Gonzalo.
When is that going to go out?
It will be going out very soon. I don't know exactly when. We need to get the specifications of that boat in order to...
It's going to go in the paper?
Yes. And
Trade magazines?
you know, if we can get... I don't think it's going to go into trade magazines, but
Can you post it at any of the boat yards in town?
we'll do whatever we can to put it out there, in addition to the newspaper. But it's a shot. If we can get more money for it, then we're that much to the good.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gonzalo. Council announcements, comments, and questions? Mr. Coulter?
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a brief update on the tolls issue. Slipped off the agenda. As many of you are aware, there was an inaugural meeting of the Secana Tolls opposition platform, sort of the local Tiverton piece of that, and a chairperson was acclaimed, and there's plenty of opportunities to help participate in that. And I would encourage any of you to reach out to Chi Loriano, or any of the town clerk can also help steer you in the right direction. Secondly, I'm just having a lot of trouble here. Can I?
Yeah. Keep the gentlemen. Try to keep your voices down, please. Okay. Mr. Coulter.
Thank you. So the Secana Tolls opposition platform, which there is a group of that crosses across the town boundaries. Mr. Nelson and I are both executive committee members of that group. That's not to be confused with the local group here in Tiverton, of which Chi Loriano is heading up. So there's a lot of opportunities to be involved with that. In addition, of course, you may have heard the bridge had an opening ceremony. I believe Mr. Lambert, Mr. Leonard, and I were in attendance, and I did have the chance to speak to the...
Hey.
I think they're still talking about
yes,
it.
this.
I think I just wanted to say that I did speak with the governor, who has offered to sit down with us, and we can talk about whether that is better done through the council president or through the stop group. And I also believe Mr. Nelson will be meeting with Director Lewis, among others, in the stop role. So we're wearing a couple different hats here, but I wanted you to know where that stood.
And if I could, in our last meeting, we discussed two avenues of approach to this. One is the legislative approach, where we would look at options for us to introduce legislation to not only to roll back the tolls, but to identify an alternative source for funding for the transportation needs. And the other would be for us to understand the requirements and organization of the various hearings, both at a state and federal level, for us to follow what the Department of Transportation and also the Bridge and Turnpike Authority hearings that would explore both a revenue and environmental impacts to these tolls. So we are working as a team to develop those two approaches in detail. Thank you.
And Mr. Nelson reminds me of a very important point. The information that I had received from Senator Whitehouse's office is that the federal authorities will not be looking at an economic point of view, and that's what I reported out at the Tiverton Stop Group. However, I did speak with two representatives from the Federal Highway Administration at the ceremony, and they actually said they will be reviewing the economic impacts. So I think maybe a request to the town solicitor would be to confirm the federal role here, that we can talk about that in a future meeting, because as we've said many times, documenting the economic impact on Tiverton is probably one of our best approaches to succeed in this. Thank you.
Any further comments, questions? Okay. Town solicitor items and announcements. Mr. Tights.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. President, rather. Item 1, Tiger Tree. There's nothing to report at the moment. We're still waiting on Judge Thunberg. Number 2, you have provided the agenda for the workshop that we're going to have dealing with the Open Meetings Act, the Access to Public Records Act, which was amended significantly this past year, and the Ethics Commission rules. And I'm also going to try to put in time, and that's what I've added to the end in light of the earlier discussion in September on the boards and with the zoning board and things like that, the land use, an open discussion on working together, so that we could save some time for that towards the end of it. It's obviously very important, and notice has gone out from the administrator urging everybody to attend. To the extent that we can make it mandatory with volunteers, we are certainly trying to. and obviously we'll have it taped and ask them to watch it if they're not there in person. But I would encourage people to come in person, because now's a chance to ask your questions.
Okay.
And that's Monday, October 29th at 7 o'clock.
Okay, town clerk announcements, Mrs. Mello? Nothing? Mr. Roderick, do we have a motion for a closed executive session?
I make a motion, we'll go into executive session regarding Councilor Pelletier, prospective business or industry, Rhode Island General Law 42465A6 regarding non-quit school.
We have a second? Second. All those in favor? Anyone opposed?
And remaining executive section regarding town administrator, collective bargaining, 42465A2, IBPO.
We have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Anyone opposed?
And remaining in executive session, Councilor Chabot with personnel, Rhode Island General Law 42465A1, performance evaluation of the town administrator, notice provided.
We have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Anyone opposed? We're now going into closed executive session.
We'll let the minutes specifically reflect to with the notice provided. That means that notice has been provided to the town administrator in writing.